There is considerable speculation in the news at the moment that changes to UK ISAs are coming. If you've been using ISAs to save tax-free, whether that's a cash ISA, a stocks and shares ISA, or even a lifetime ISA, there are some big reforms being speculated for 2025 that you need to know about. These potential changes could limit how much you can save tax-free, or even reshape the way ISAs work entirely. Today, we're going to look at what's being discussed, why these changes are being considered, and what steps you can take to make sure your savings are protected. Before we dive into potential changes, let's quickly cover what ISAs are and why they're so important. An ISA, short for Individual Savings Account, is essentially a tax-free wrapper for savings or investments. The beauty of an ISA, and the reason that so many Brits love them, is that you don't pay income tax on interest from savings, nor do you pay capital gains or dividend tax on investments. And in the UK, currently there are a few types of ISAs. First, you've got cash ISAs, which are just like regular savings account, but you benefit from tax-free interest. And then you've got the stocks and shares ISA, which allow you to invest in the stock market without worrying about taxes on your returns, whether that's capital gains or dividends. And then finally, you've got lifetime ISAs, which give you a 25% government bonus when saving for your first home or retirement if you're under the age of 40. And then finally, you've got junior ISAs, which are designed for children under the age of 18. The annual allowance, i.e. the maximum amount you can put into an ISA each year across all adult ISAs, is 20k. And this hasn't changed since 2017, but this is actually one of the things that could be under review. Now, let's get into what's actually being discussed for 2025. The government has been considering ways to reform ISAs, particularly cash ISAs, which are by far the most popular type, with over 11 million people in the UK using a cash ISA each year, holding around 300 billion in total savings. However, some policymakers argue that this money isn't being used productively. In other words, they think too much money is sat idle in low interest accounts instead of being invested in ways that could help grow the economy. One of the biggest proposals being discussed is to reduce the annual allowance of cash ISAs from 20,000 to just 4,000. If implemented, this would mean that if you're someone who likes to max out your ISA allowance each year, perhaps as part of your retirement planning, you'd be forced to put that remaining £16,000 into other types of accounts, such as the stocks and shares ISA or taxable accounts. The reason behind this proposal is that the government wants to encourage more people to invest their money rather than keeping it in cash savings. And they argue that investing helps businesses to grow and boost the wider economy overall. But for many people, particularly those who prefer lower risk options or need quick access to money for emergencies, this change could be hugely disruptive. Now, there's also speculation that the government are considering scrapping cash ISAs altogether. This would mean no more tax-free interest on cash savings at all. Proponents of this idea argue that it would bring the UK more in line with other countries. Most G7 nations don't actually offer tax breaks for cash savings like we do here. Instead, they encourage long-term investments through pensions and stocks. However, critics argue that not everyone is comfortable with investing in stocks and shares. And according to research by the FCA, over 60% of people with cash ISAs have never invested in equities before. Forcing individuals into riskier investments isn't just impractical, it could lead to significant financial stress if markets take a downturn and everyone panics. One alternative being floated is something called the Green Cash ISA. This would allow savers to keep their tax-free benefits, but only if their money is being used for environmentally friendly projects like renewable energy or retrofitting homes for energy efficiency. And while this sounds appealing in theory and aligns with the government's climate goals, there are concerns about whether these accounts would offer competitive returns compared to traditional cash ISAs. So, you might be thinking, why is all of this happening now? And there are a few reasons driving these proposed reforms. Number one being cost. The government loses 4.3 billion each year in tax revenue because of ISA allowances. Money that they argue could be better spent elsewhere, like funding public services or reducing debt. Number two is productivity. Policymakers believe that too much money is sitting idle in low interest cash accounts rather than being invested in businesses or infrastructure projects that could help grow the economy. Number 3 is generational equity. Younger people, i.e. those under 35, hold just 9% of total ISA wealth in the UK. Meanwhile, older generations have built up significant pots over time thanks to higher allowances and better interest rates in previous decades. Some argue that reforming ISAs could help level the playing field between these generations. If these changes go ahead, and we won't know for sure until later this year, but they could have a big impact on how you save and how you invest your money going forward. If the cash ISA limit of £4,000 comes into effect, you might need to consider moving more of your savings into stocks and shares ISAs or other investment accounts. And while these offer high growth potential over time, they also come with significant risk and require a longer term commitment. Then, if cash ISAs are abolished entirely, you'd lose one of the simplest ways to earn tax-free interest on your cash savings. Alternatives like premium bonds or NS&I products might become more attractive, but they could offer lower returns overall. And if products like green cash ISAs are introduced, you'll want to weigh up whether their environmental benefits outweigh any potential trade-offs in terms of flexibility or interest rates. The good news is that there's still time to prepare before any of these changes take effect, and there are practical steps you can take right now to protect your savings. Number 1 is to make full use of your current ISA allowance before April the 5th. If you haven't already maxed out your 20k limit for this year, now's the time to do it, especially if you're holding cash savings and want to lock in those tax-free benefits whilst they're still available. Next, you want to consider diversifying where you keep your money. If you've only ever used cash ISAs before, now might be a good time to explore stocks and shares ISAs as an option for at least part of your portfolio. Finally, you want to stay informed. These proposals are still under discussion, so keep an eye on updates from trusted sources that will help you to ensure that you're ready for whatever changes come next. ISAs have been one of the best tools available for UK savers over the past 2 decades, but nothing lasts forever. And while these proposed changes might seem daunting at first glance, they also present an opportunity to rethink how we manage our money and plan for the future. Whether you're saving for a rainy day or building long-term wealth, taking action now will put you in the best possible position for what comes next. If you've liked this video or want to hear about any future potential changes, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you back on this channel. Thank you.